One of the most overlooked truths in modern relationships is how women instinctively anticipate options even when they appear fully committed. This is not about distrust, deceit, or an inherently malicious intent. It is rooted in what evolutionary psychologists and behavioral experts call hypergamy, the natural tendency to seek the highest value made available. Women are wired to evaluate security, emotional support, and resources often simultaneously as part of a subconscious strategy for long-term survival and reproductive success. Understanding this fundamental aspect of female nature is critical for any man who wants to navigate relationships with clarity, awareness, and self-preservation. Hypergamy operates on multiple levels, and one of its primary mechanisms is anticipation. Even in a seemingly stable relationship, a woman's mind will evaluate her partner not only for his present qualities, but also for his long-term potential. Is he growing ambitious, confident? Does he maintain boundaries, display masculine energy, and command respect from others? These evaluations occur naturally, often without conscious intent, and they prepare her for contingencies. In other words, she mentally considers the possibility of change or exit before it is necessary, maintaining a psychological safety net. This anticipation is not necessarily about actively seeking someone else at all times. Rather, it is about keeping her options open. Women will notice attractive men in their social circles, colleagues, or even casual encounters, and while she may not act on these observations, her mind records them. She uses these mental benchmarks to evaluate her current partner's performance, his growth, and whether he continues to meet her evolving standards. This is why a man may feel suddenly replaced emotionally without any overt action on the woman's part, because her mind has already prepared for a scenario where she could seek a higher value option if necessary. For men, this natural anticipation often manifests as subtle tension, doubt, or insecurity in the relationship. Many men misinterpret these signals as personal failure or betrayal when in reality they are part of a woman's innate pattern of evaluation. Recognizing this as hypergamous anticipation allows a man to respond proactively rather than reactively. Awareness is key. Understanding that women are wired to consider options helps men avoid overreacting to small shifts in attention or energy and instead focus on becoming the high-value, unshakable partner that naturally attracts sustained commitment. Another important aspect is that this anticipation does not always lead to disloyalty. A woman may remain fully devoted, yet her mind continues to assess potential future mates subconsciously. This is why some men feel blindsided when a relationship ends. She may have already evaluated alternatives long before any overt signals appeared. Hypergamy is about preparation, not necessarily immediate action. A man who ignores this reality risks being unprepared for shifts in female interest, whereas a man who understands it can strengthen himself, build emotional resilience, and ensure that he remains the most valuable person in her evaluation. Ultimately, recognizing that women anticipate options is not about mistrust. It is about understanding the underlying logic of female nature. Men who understand this dynamic are able to maintain clarity in their relationships, focus on their own growth, and cultivate the confidence and masculine energy that naturally reinforces their position as a high-value partner. By understanding female hypergamy, a man no longer fears these natural tendencies. He anticipates them, adjusts his own behavior accordingly, and ensures that he remains central in her mind, not through control or manipulation, but through authentic self-mastery. Understanding female hypergamy and the natural anticipation of options is the first step toward navigating relationships with awareness, maintaining personal sovereignty, and fostering a connection built on respect, attraction, and mutual value. In any relationship, one of the most critical, but often overlooked, truths is that women communicate their intentions and feelings subtly long before they take overt action. Emotional disengagement is one of the clearest indicators that a woman is beginning to mentally prepare for an exit or is already scouting alternatives. This isn't always obvious to men, especially modern men who are accustomed to direct communication or assume that commitment is a guarantee of consistent attention and care. Understanding these subtle signals is essential for protecting yourself, maintaining awareness, and responding effectively without overreacting or losing your masculine presence. Emotional disengagement can manifest in many forms. It might start as small changes in communication patterns, delayed responses to messages, reduced enthusiasm in conversations, or a noticeable drop in intimacy and playfulness. She might become less interested in sharing her day or listening to yours, or she may avoid discussing long-term plans or future goals. These aren't coincidences, they are subconscious strategies that indicate she is emotionally checking out or evaluating the relationship from a distance. The moment a man recognizes these signals, he has the opportunity to act wisely rather than react impulsively. Another clear sign of emotional disengagement is a shift in priorities. Activities and time spent together that once felt natural and meaningful may become neglected. She may prioritize social events, friendships, or personal hobbies more than the relationship. This doesn't always mean she is being unfaithful, but it does indicate a shift in emotional investment. Her mind is beginning to mentally rehearse life scenarios without the partner, which is a natural step in hypergamous behavior. She is testing her options, comparing experiences, and evaluating what would happen if the relationship were no longer central to her life. Subtle behavior changes often extend to physical and sexual intimacy as well. A decline in sexual enthusiasm, less physical affection, or a lack of curiosity about her partner's needs can all be signs that emotional disengagement has begun. These shifts are rarely random. They are signals that she is subconsciously reallocating her emotional energy elsewhere. Men who fail to notice these patterns often misinterpret them as personal inadequacy, creating anxiety or overcompensation that further destabilizes the relationship. For men, the key is awareness and observation without panic. Emotional disengagement is a natural part of female nature when our subconscious evaluation of options begins. Recognizing it early allows a man to take measured steps, strengthen his own value, maintain clear boundaries, and cultivate the masculine energy that naturally re-engages a woman's attention. Overreacting, begging, or attempting to control her behavior only accelerates disengagement. Instead, the man who understands these signals can respond strategically, ensuring he remains in control of his emotional state and the overall dynamics of the relationship. In essence, emotional disengagement is a signal, not a verdict. It is a woman's way of creating psychological space while assessing her options. Men who learn to recognize and interpret these cues accurately gain a significant advantage. They understand the trajectory of the relationship and can act in ways that maintain respect, attraction, and authority. This is a cornerstone of understanding female nature, reading subtle cues before problems escalate, and responding with presence and clarity rather than fear or insecurity. Recognizing and interpreting emotional disengagement early is the foundation for protecting yourself and maintaining your position in the relationship. By observing these signals without judgment and responding with strategic self-mastery, a man ensures he is never caught off guard, even as female hypergamy naturally evaluates options in the background. One of the most powerful and often misunderstood aspects of female nature in modern relationships is the instinct to create what I call a backup plan. This doesn't necessarily mean that she is actively cheating or planning to leave right now. Rather, it is a subconscious or semi-conscious strategy to secure emotional and practical options in case her current relationship fails to meet her evolving needs. Understanding this behavior is essential for men who want to maintain awareness, protect their emotional energy, and operate from a position of confidence rather than insecurity. From an evolutionary and psychological perspective, women have been wired to evaluate and prepare for contingencies in their relationships. Historically, a woman's survival and well-being were closely linked to her mate's ability to provide security, resources, and protection. While modern contexts differ, the underlying instincts remain strong. A woman's mind will naturally consider alternatives, mentally mapping out scenarios in which her current partner may no longer be sufficient. This backup plan could range from imagining a future with someone else, keeping in touch with past connections, or evaluating new social prospects, all without overtly betraying her current partner. The backup plan mentality often manifests subtly in everyday interactions. For example, she might maintain a wider social network, stay in touch with former acquaintances, or cultivate connections that are not strictly necessary for her current life. She may appear distracted or less emotionally present, not because she doesn't care, but because her subconscious is actively analyzing options and potential risks. Men who fail to recognize these behaviors often misinterpret them as disinterest or betrayal, creating anxiety that further undermines the relationship dynamic. Understanding this mentality also sheds light on why women may test their partners repeatedly. These tests are not always malicious. They are a way to measure consistency, resilience, and masculine energy. The backup plan is a psychological safety net, and these tests help her evaluate whether her current partner is high value enough to remain her primary choice. Men who respond with insecurity, desperation, or controlling behavior only reinforce the need for the backup, while men who maintain confidence, self-mastery, and clear boundaries naturally strengthen their position. Another critical aspect is that the backup plan does not always become active. A woman may never act on these options if she is satisfied, stimulated, and emotionally engaged with her current partner. The key for men is not to panic or assume betrayal, but to understand that this mental evaluation is a natural part of female psychology. By staying aware and confident, men can ensure that they remain the preferred choice, not through manipulation, but by demonstrating high value, stability, and masculine energy that is consistently attractive. In modern relationships, the concept of a backup plan is often misunderstood as a moral failing or a reason to feel anxious. In reality, it is a normal part of female nature, a mechanism for self-preservation and evaluation. Men who understand this dynamic are able to navigate relationships with awareness rather than fear. They can interpret subtle cues, strengthen their own value, and maintain emotional sovereignty without reacting impulsively to normal patterns of female assessment. Ultimately, recognizing the backup plan mentality equips a man with clarity and foresight. He no longer needs to be blindsided by sudden changes in attention or emotional distance. Instead, he can respond strategically, cultivating his own growth, maintaining boundaries, and reinforcing the qualities that naturally make him the woman's preferred partner, while the subconscious evaluations take place. One of the most telling behaviors a woman exhibits when she is considering her options in a relationship is what I call subtle testing. Unlike overt arguments or obvious confrontations, these tests are often understated, almost invisible to men who are unaware of female psychological patterns. Yet, they carry profound meaning. These small, deliberate acts are designed to gauge a man's confidence, emotional resilience, and consistency, qualities that are directly tied to his perceived value. Understanding these tests is critical for men who wish to maintain control, presence, and authority in a relationship. Subtle tests can take many forms. She might make a seemingly innocent comment that challenges your judgment or decisions, or she may question your plans or goals in ways that seem trivial. Sometimes, she will intentionally withhold information, attention, or affection to see how you respond. The goal is not always conscious. Often, these behaviors are instinctive strategies to measure how secure you are and whether you will maintain your position as her preferred partner. Men who react emotionally, defensively, or desperately fail these tests, while men who respond with calm assurance and clear boundaries strengthen their attraction. Another common form of subtle testing is the social evaluation. Women often observe how you interact with others, your friends, strangers, or even coworkers, to determine your social value. This is an extension of the backup plan mentality. She is assessing whether you can maintain composure, leadership, and confidence under various circumstances. A man who is overly eager to please, apologetic without cause, or insecure in social settings signals lower value. Conversely, a man who demonstrates assertiveness, composure, and independence passes the test, reinforcing his standing as a high-value partner. Subtle testing also occurs in emotional and physical intimacy. She may withdraw slightly or act distant, only to watch how you respond. Does your emotional state depend entirely on her attention, or do you maintain your equilibrium? Do you chase, plead, or demand validation, or do you handle the distance with dignity and focus on your own life? The answers to these questions reveal to her whether you are resilient, confident, and self-contained, all traits that are deeply attractive from a primal and psychological standpoint. Understanding subtle testing is crucial because it helps men interpret behavior without misjudging the relationship's status. Many men see these tests as rejection or personal failure, reacting in ways that erode their authority and attraction. The reality is that these tests are natural, instinctive evaluations from a woman's perspective, not a judgment of worth. Men who recognize this can respond strategically with awareness, confidence, and measured reactions that communicate stability and high value. Subtle testing is also closely tied to the backup plan. When a woman has mental alternatives in mind, she unconsciously tests her current partner to ensure he remains worthy of investment. By failing these tests, through insecurity, overattention, or emotional volatility, a man signals that he is not the high-value partner she needs, making her backup plan more appealing, even if temporarily. Conversely, passing the test reinforces the primary bond and reduces the need for alternative options. In essence, subtle testing is a lens into her true intentions and a tool for men to understand the underlying dynamics of female nature. Recognizing and responding appropriately allows a man to maintain authority, confidence, and attraction, ensuring he is not blindsided by the natural evaluations she conducts. Awareness of these tests equips a man to navigate the relationship with strategy and self-mastery, reinforcing his position as the preferred and dominant partner without confrontation or unnecessary conflict. One of the most overlooked but critical aspects of female nature in relationships is the use of emotional distance as a form of evaluation. This behavior is often misinterpreted by men as disinterest, coldness, or even rejection. Yet, in reality, emotional distance is a subtle and highly strategic method women use to assess their partner's value, resilience, and emotional stability. Understanding this dynamic is essential for men who want to maintain control, awareness, and presence in the relationship rather than being blindsided by fear, insecurity, or overreactions. Emotional distance often appears in small, seemingly insignificant ways. She may take longer to respond to texts, seem distracted in conversation, or withdraw physically or emotionally at times when attention and connection are expected. To the untrained eye, this can feel like a personal slight, an indication that you're losing her interest. But the truth is far more nuanced. This is her mind running an internal assessment, consciously or subconsciously, testing whether you remain grounded, confident, and unshaken when she is not constantly affirming your worth. The primary reason women create emotional distance is tied directly to the concept of backup planning and evaluation. When a woman has mental alternatives or simply wants to ensure her current partner is the highest value option, she naturally observes how he behaves under conditions where he doesn't receive immediate validation. If a man becomes clingy, defensive, or overly anxious, he signals dependency and insecurity. These traits, from a primal and evolutionary perspective, decrease his perceived value and make her consider other options. On the other hand, a man who maintains his composure, focuses on his own growth, and responds with calm assurance demonstrates emotional maturity and strength, solidifying his role as the preferred partner. Emotional distance also serves as a mirror for men to understand their own attachment patterns and boundaries. It exposes tendencies toward over-pleasing, people-pleasing, or codependency that may have gone unnoticed in a relationship. By recognizing that her withdrawal is a test rather than a judgment, a man can shift from reactive behavior to proactive self-mastery. He can maintain his life goals and sense of purpose while still being available, nurturing, and attentive in measured ways. This creates a balance that naturally strengthens attraction and demonstrates high value. Another important factor is timing. Emotional distance is not permanent. It fluctuates depending on her perception of your responses and consistency. Women are constantly measuring energy, attention, and masculine presence. A man who responds to temporary withdrawal with composure, self-respect, and focused engagement on his own life passes the test. A man who reacts with panic, excessive questioning, or attempts to win her back signals lower status and triggers the activation of her backup plan or her search for alternative options. Recognizing the purpose of emotional distance also allows men to avoid common pitfalls, assuming rejection, attempting to control her, or trying to overcompensate with attention. Each of these responses diminishes perceived value and undermines the dynamic of attraction. Instead, understanding the withdrawal as a natural evaluation tool gives men clarity. It becomes less about reading signals anxiously and more about cultivating personal stability, masculine energy, and emotional strength. Ultimately, emotional distance is a subtle yet powerful communication from a woman's subconscious. She is not always aware of the effect she is creating, but her actions are deeply rooted in instinct and assessment. By interpreting her distance as a test of character, men can respond strategically, maintaining authority, attractiveness, and presence in the relationship. Recognizing and navigating this behavior ensures that a man is not blindsided and remains the preferred, dominant partner in the dynamic without unnecessary conflict or insecurity. One of the most crucial realities men must understand in modern relationships is that women often maintain a mental backup plan, a secondary option while remaining in a current partnership. This behavior is rooted in primal instincts in female nature, where the goal is security, emotional fulfillment, and continued access to high-value partners. While this may sound harsh or manipulative from a modern perspective, it is simply an evolutionary mechanism designed to protect her interests and ensure she is always aligned with a partner who meets her standards. Understanding this behavior is essential for men who want to maintain their position as the preferred partner rather than being sidelined without warning. The first sign of a backup plan often appears subtly. She may mention other men casually, comment on social dynamics, or engage in behaviors that test your emotional response. These are not necessarily conscious actions. Many women are not actively scheming, but they serve as a method to measure a partner's value and see whether he remains strong, confident, and emotionally resilient. For men, the mistake is often taking these comments personally, overreacting, or attempting to control her interactions. Each of these responses diminishes masculine presence and signals lower value. A critical aspect of the backup plan is that it often develops when a man fails to consistently demonstrate high value masculine traits, confidence, emotional stability, independence, and direction in life. Women subconsciously measure their partner's energy and presence, and if a man appears weak, insecure, or easily influenced, she may begin to mentally consider alternatives. This is not always an active pursuit, but a safety net in her mind, a reflection of instinctual strategy. Men who understand this concept learn to self-regulate, maintain boundaries, and project consistent strength, thereby reducing the likelihood that a backup plan is activated or pursued. Another layer to consider is that a backup plan is often tied to emotional engagement. Women observe how a man handles challenges, confrontations, and emotional distance. If he reacts with overdependence, anxiety, or neediness, she unconsciously records these as warning signs. A backup plan in this context is a form of insurance, an option in case her primary partner cannot meet her perceived needs. On the contrary, men who remain centered, focused on their goals, and maintain emotional control pass this test and effectively neutralize the backup plan instinct. Men must also understand that awareness alone does not create paranoia, it creates strategy. Recognizing the potential for a backup plan allows men to strengthen their presence in the relationship without fear or overcompensation. By investing in personal growth, maintaining independence, and demonstrating unwavering masculine energy, a man becomes someone whose value cannot be easily replaced. Awareness empowers him to act from confidence rather than insecurity, ensuring that he remains the primary focus of attraction and connection. Finally, the backup plan concept reinforces a broader truth about female nature. Relationships are dynamic and evaluative, not static. Women continuously assess whether their partner meets evolving standards, even subconsciously. Men who ignore this reality often find themselves blindsided by shifts in attention or affection. Those who understand it, however, can navigate the relationship intelligently, maintaining dominance, attraction, and emotional stability while subtly ensuring they remain irreplaceable in her perception. In essence, recognizing and understanding the existence of a backup plan is not about fostering distrust or controlling behavior. It is about self-mastery and clarity. A man who internalizes this principle can maintain authority, confidence, and high-value presence, ensuring that he remains the preferred partner and that the natural dynamics of attraction work in his favor rather than against him.